Awesome. Thanks for having me here this afternoon. My name is Jeff Card. I'm here with my friend and colleague Om Mishra to talk about BC Gov Pub Code, which is a digital product metadata specification. I certainly appreciate you, Faisal, off the top, announcing this as a success. But we've done a lot of good work here. But really, the community is going to decide whether or not this is a success. But I'm going to do the thing that I seem to only know how to do lately, and that's kind of walk through a deck of a few slides, and then I'm going to pass it over to him for the good stuff. So what problem are we trying to solve? Really, for me, I mean, you guys can read the slide, but we've been thinking about this for quite a while about how do we gain more visibility into some of the digital products that we're developing. We did have a new director of our development and digital services group, Jacqueline Vervnik. I'm not sure if she's on the call, but she joined us late last year. And naturally, she came to me as the director of architecture and said, basically, what have we built? What have we got? So we started looking into this, and we've had some other challenges around teams looking to create integrations between different systems, looking for who the product owners are, who the data custodian is. We've had people try to identify business capabilities to explore reusability of various code bases produced by different teams. So really what we're trying to do is promote the idea of discoverability, collaboration, and awareness. So what is BC Gov Pub Code? It's really just a metadata specification standard for public software that's easier for both developers and less technical people to work with and understand, to really expose that software for those code bases for discoverability and awareness. And we didn't create this concept. We looked into what other jurisdictions were doing. We found that the Italian government had developed a concept that is now kind of spreading around parts of the European Union called publiccode.yaml. So we kind of latched onto that concept. We did look at kind of contributing as part of that community, but there were several challenges there, and the specification didn't really meet our immediate needs. So we decided to build one on our own. When we started looking at the ecosystem, we talked to Elena and we talked to the platform services team, and of course there's the OpenShift registry. But we're starting to see more teams deploy into AWS and deploy into GCP and other hosting environments. So we took a step back and said, what's the one thing we have in common here? And that's that all the teams are using GitHub. So we decided to create a metadata specification that would live as code beside code to allow those product teams to kind of self-report against their assets and put that out in the open for teams to consume however they'd like. So the BC Gov Pub Code YAML specification is a community-owned spec. It's sourced as JSON because we're using a schema store validation, rendered as YAML because it's more human readable. But really, you must follow the naming standard of metadata spec to allow for the aggregation that we are going to provide for the community. The conceptual overview of what we built so far. So if you kind of start on the left-hand side here, we built an author UI. Om's going to talk about that. He's found a really clever library to forward engineer that UI from the JSON schema. And really, we're looking at, the primary persona here as being the product owner on digital teams. All they have to do is use this simple UI. And again, we're really trying to keep this very, very simple to build and publish a BC Gov Pub Code YAML file in the root of their GitHub repo. And then we've created a repo crawler. On a nightly basis, we'll go and scour our tenancy, all 1,500 repos. And if a BC Gov Pub Code YAML file exists, we will populate it into our document database. And we do have an HTTP endpoint sitting on top of that document database. So if you look at the right-hand side of the graphic here, I mean, really, we're promoting the idea of self-reporting and self-service. So, any product team who creates a YAML file, that'll get into the document database, be exposed. And, you can see our infrastructure reporting system in the NR sector here. Any CMDB, Confluence, ServiceNow, Jira, you name it, you can consume it however you'd like. And lastly, for me, kind of what's next and how did we get here? We're just finalizing the version 1.0 of the specification, which we've just completed. We've been working with a couple teams, most notably Sherilyn Hurley and the Common Services team. We also haven't done this work alone. We've had some collaboration. I saw Derek Roberts was here earlier. He's helped out with this, and some members of the architecture team as well. We never do things on our own, so we look for our partners. We've explored various tools to dynamically generate the UI from JSON, so I'm just going to show that. We created the repo crawler to scan all the GitHub repos and collect and aggregate that information into the document database. And we have built some early visualizations. So at the very end, I'll kind of show you some tinkering I've done in Power BI to kind of show you what's on the realm of possible. And we're moving towards kind of that 1.0 release for all the NR digital teams, which, I guess today that's a little bit more broader audience. So we'll be kind of, letting loose on this after this presentation. And our KPI is an easy one. How many BC.gov pubcode YAML files have been curated by various teams across government, across the sector. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to you all to take it away, and I will stop sharing.
Thank you, Jeff. I'll steal the screen. Give me a thumbs up, guys, if you see my screen. As Jeff mentioned, when we started way back discussing about this, we really liked the idea what the Italian government on the public code YAML has done. So we like the idea of having all the JSON schema defining all the standards and whatnot. So we really look forward integrating with schemastore.org, which basically integrates and your IDE, be it VS Code or IntelliJ, whatever you use. It directly hooks onto schemastore.org and validates Docker Compose YAML or whatever the YAML is specifying. But then we discussed that, our target audience are not all devs or tech leads or architects. So how can we help them create a simple interface which can easily have all the validations in place, which is available in our JSON schema. Then after doing some research spike, we found this React JSON schema form, which is a component library written in React, which you can leverage and give it a JSON schema and it will pop up an UI. So we took that approach, me being a Vue guy, like always search for Vue things, but didn't find anything. So time to learn React. I did this. Some React seasoned developers on the call might say that, the code is not looking that great. So yeah, if you think that, then please feel free to create a pull request on a repo, which I'll be sharing later. Knowingly, we have kept this set of minimum attributes to the very minimum of 8, so that it's not too much for product owners or developers to fill up when they're filling up this form. The most important aspect of these forms are business capabilities. What business capabilities the product is able to provide. Like we have several from the drop down is a multi-select. All these drop downs are mostly multi-select. You can multi-select on these and hosting platform. These are the few things you will not be able to get easily out of your GitHub search. GitHub search does provide you with certain options, but these are the things which when you self-report you, it's easily available and discoverable. Now, what I will do is I'll not fill up all these to save time. I'll just go to one of my pre-filled forms. And if you look below, I click submit after filling up all these things. It gives me a nice visualized YAML file, which I can just copy and paste it into a notepad or directly put it into GitHub. We also have a edit button. So when I'll just click on edit again, maybe I'll just go back to home to show you it works. So if you click on edit, it asks you for a pubcode YAML link. So I'll just go and grab this link from my existing pubcode YAML file, paste it in there. And when I click on submit, the form is populated with existing YAML, converted into form fields. Now, if I just want to change something, I just update it and submit. It should give me the updated YAML version. Now I can just copy or download. I can copy it, it gets copied, or I can download it and it gets downloaded to my local system. Now, going back, this is a sample YAML which I have hosted on my created on public code repository itself. You can always come and see. Let's talk a little bit about the architecture. So if you come here to our repository, we'll see that on the wiki page, we have an architecture page about how all these are stitched together. As Jeff mentioned earlier, we have 4 components: the Node Express API backing the Mongo database. The React frontend is served by the Caddy, which is a light Go web server written in Golang. And we have this JavaScript crawler module, which is a Node.js, runs on Node.js through GitHub Actions, and that crawls through repositories under BCGov tenancy. And after crawling all the repositories, if it finds BCGov pubcode YAML files, it will create an array of JSON and post that to this Node Express API. The post endpoint is secured with API key. We knowingly did that because we don't want any other person to get access to this endpoint. While the read endpoint is open to all, as Jeff mentioned a few minutes back, so that anyone can get this data and hook it to CMDB or Jira or whatever. And the UI gets instant validation from the pubcode schema, which basically when we open the UI, it hooks into directly GitHub and loads the schema and let the form based on that schema. We also have intensive documentation directly on the repository itself about each module. I am a fan of Mermaid after doing some of the documentation using Mermaid. That really helped me expedite some of these documentation. If you have any questions, please create issues, or we have also enabled the discussions tab, which will enable you to create new topics for discussion if you want to. And with that, I'll pass on to Jeff, so that he can show you some of the KPIs we have built. For that, we have used this JSON schema, which basically allows you, if you have a JSON schema, you can use this NPM library to create mock data set based on your JSON schema. With that, over to you, Jeff.
Great, thanks, Om. So yeah, like Om was saying, we did create some sample data. And I'm by no means a Power BI expert, but I wanted to come, prepared with some kind of a visualization of what might kind of be in the realm of possible. So, I'll just quickly share this. We do have almost 1,500 GitHub repos in our tenancy. So I just grabbed some of the attributes from the JSON. I'm consuming this directly from the HTTP API. So if you're an investment person, if you're at the OCIO and you want to kind of understand the ecosystem, for example, you can look at, how many apps do we have running on the OpenShift private cloud. And it'll delineate by ministry. If you want to look at some of the business capabilities, human resource management, for example, we can click on that and we can get some visualizations out of that. Maybe we want to know, what's the momentum around the React framework for front-end JavaScript development. So anyway, I just wanted to quickly show the visualization so that we can, like I said, we're really just aggregating and presenting the data, and how you choose the data to use the data is really up to you from a self-serve perspective. So. I'm happy to share the link if anybody wants to tinker around in this. It's pretty simplistic, as I said, but I will stop there and we will open it up to questions.
I've got a quick question for you guys.
Hey, Marco.
Hello. Just a quick one around the quality. So I understand that, when it comes to GitHub repos, we all like to look at the stars and things like that, or downloads, number of downloads. Is there a thought to maybe bring some of that into the KPI side as part of sort of, input for, which repos you might want to use?
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely the kind of feedback that we'd like, Marco. Like I said, we just developed kind of that 1.0 specification. How we developed that is we took the work that the Italian government did. We picked and chose the things that we liked and were relevant to us. And then we did a gap analysis against our current CMDB implementation, as you're probably aware of IRS and the NR sector. Mm-hmm. And we kind of looked at what are those pieces, but that's a really good piece of feedback. If you could just ping me with a quick note privately on that one, we'll add it to the things we're going to look at for version 1.1. Thanks, Marco.
Thanks, man.
Perfect.